welcome to the Black Experience. My name is Vangile Makwakwa, and I am the author of Heart, Mind, and Money, and the founder of Wealthy Money. And I just want to say thank you, Junior, for allowing me to do a class. So Junior asked me to interview two of my favorite personal development people, which is Dr. Venus Opal-Rees and Ra Goddess, and I was super excited about that. And then he asked me to do a live class on my own. I was like, I kind of hope for an interview, but here we are. My topic for today is 7 mistakes that we make with money. Junior gave me a whole different topic, and then I just tried to feel into it, and it really didn't spiritually connect with me, right? So, and I can't ever do work unless it's like feeling guided and I'm feeling it in my body. So, yeah, that's what came through that I should do for this particular class for Black Experience. So, let me start by sharing who I am, how I came to do this work, and then I'll move into the class and also share about the free gift that I have for you guys. So, the work that I do, I came to do it because I started off about going to study finance. I come from a family where I saw people on both sides of the family really struggle financially, even with degrees. I'm very lucky in that I'm from South Africa, and in South Africa, not everyone comes from a family where both sides, most people are educated, whereas I grew up with that. But growing up with that, I got to see that education helps you get out of extreme poverty, but it never leads to financial freedom. What I was seeing around me is that everyone around me was always just like one step from, if you don't get paid this month, then things will definitely fall apart, right? And things were looking really extreme. So I decided, I'm not going to struggle like that. I'm going to go off to the University of Cape Town and study finance. So I have a finance honors degree. Yes, I got my finance honors degree, was super excited. And I thought to myself, you know what, I am going to go off and I'm actually going to get a proper job as a mining and energy analyst, and I'm going to be doing so much better than my family. Well, guess what? The first month of working as a mining and energy analyst, I blew all my money. Like the first paycheck that I got, I blew it all on clothes and things that I can't even remember now, right? But I did all that in a space of 3 days. My money barely lasted. And then I was in a situation where I then had no money but still had to figure out how to get to work. So I got a second job where in the weekends I would waitress, right? So working as an analyst and waitressing, and now I had 2 paychecks, and guess what? I was still broke. I didn't even have that many expenses, so then I decided, you know what? The thing that's going to solve this is to leave South Africa and travel. So I got a credit card, and that was the beginning of my love of credit cards, because I started using credit cards to pay off for my travels. I paid for plane tickets, I paid for everything, right? I was traveling everywhere but on credit. So I paid for everything on credit cards. It was crazy. And as I was traveling, my debt was getting more and more and more. And I was getting more and more stressed. So it came to a point where I remember being in Trinidad. Actually, no, it was more in Tobago. So, and I decided that I was going to go off and study and get an MBA and do my master's. So I left and I went off to do my master's and went to Boston, got student loans. So remember, I had credit cards. Oh, I forgot to mention that I also had a little bit of student loans from undergrad. So now I had student loans from undergrad debt. I had credit card debt, Then I decided I was going to get more debt to do an MBA in the US. And if you know anything about US grad schools, then you know it's crazy, right? Like the amount of money required to study there is insane. So I went up, and when I finished grad school, I decided, you know what? I actually want to be a poet. I want to write for a living. And not only that, I'm going to start a company around writing, and I'm not going to get a job because I want to follow my passion and all that. And how I'm going to pay for this passion is through credit cards. So I got like 2 or 3 more credit cards. It's so interesting how all these companies are willing to give us credit cards, right? So I got more and more credit cards, and I got more and more in debt. And before I even turned 26, by the time I was 28, I was $60,000 in debt. So that was about 7 years ago, and it was intense for me, right? So then I went on this journey of how to get out of debt. Oh, I forgot to mention, because this is a huge part of the story. So what started happening was I would start having panic attacks. So how I went on a journey to pay off debt was I thought I had everything under control, but then I started having intense panic attacks and worrying about money, right? I would worry about money all day, every day. I'd be anxious about money all day, every day. And I would be panicking about money. And I had this company, remember, 4 writers, and I'm not making any money. I don't have a job. I've got all these student loans from South Africa, from the US. I've got credit cards from South Africa, from the US. I also had like overdrafts in the UK. So basically everywhere I was going, I was causing a financial mess. So all this eventually got to me until one day I went to the bank. And on my way to the bank, I started having a full-blown panic attack. I didn't know what was going on. I was freaking out, and the panic attacks didn't stop after that. Like every time I had to look at my bank account to manage money, I didn't stop having panic attacks. And I thought to myself, I can't live like this. At the time, I was like, I'm 28. This cannot be my life. So this was in 2011. I looked at my life, and I decided to do an entire overhaul. I knew one thing for sure, right? I knew that I understood finance. I didn't just do a finance degree. I actually happened to graduate really well. And then in the MBA program, I graduated with A's and a 3.75 GPA or something like that. So I knew my problem wasn't intellectual. The issue with money isn't intellect, isn't that we're not educated. I was living proof of that. In fact, I could say, well, I've been to some of the best universities and schools globally. I've done the best certificates and programs. So, like, mentally, that was not the problem. But the problem was that I was having these panic attacks, and they were quickly turning into depression. So I have a history of depression from my teens. So that went into depression, and before I knew it, I was writing poems. So if you go on YouTube, you'll see me performing a poem called "This is the Suicide Note, I Will Never Write." And that was at the height of my depression, when I was really thinking of taking my own life. So I was writing myself letters, convincing myself why I shouldn't take my own life. And this was all tied into money. Or so I thought. For me, it was money is the reason why I want to take my life. So I decided, okay, so my main issue that I can see right now is emotional. And the emotional aspect started affecting my entire digestive system. I was having a hard time digesting anything. I started struggling for the first time in my life with health. I had a tailbone pain that wouldn't quit. It was just getting extremely bad for me. So I started to focus on my emotions. I started learning about meditation. I went back to African spirituality, went back to what I'd been taught in South Africa. So I was doing all this in Boston. I started interviewing meditators. I started talking to people and learning more. I went on my own research. I basically parked my finance degree for a while and started researching behavioral finance, research psychology, read thesis on neuroscience. Yeah, it wasn't pretty, but you know, when you're on a mission, you're not actually really thinking, oh, thesis, like reading people's PhD thesis is so boring. It was riveting for me, okay? Because I got to finally go, wow, like I get to connect the dots between all this work that I'm doing on my emotions, and then I wrote Heart, Mind, and Money, right? But since Heart, Mind, and Money, and it's so interesting, since Heart, Mind, and Money, all this amazing stuff happened, right? I published my book, Heart, Mind, and Money. It got like amazing reviews in South Africa. Then it opened up this space for me to be able to build wealthy money, but not only build wealthy money, but also travel as I build this company. So I've like completely changed how I travel. So before I had tons and tons of credit cards, right? Now I have no credit cards. I travel on cash. I build my company cash-based. It's literally, I do everything cash. And I've learned so much. And because my first company failed, I can learn from all those lessons from the first company and figure out how to make this second company work, right? So failure, I've learned, is actually an amazing thing. So all the things that I learned from the research and how to turn my finances around, how I went from being, oh my God, I'm so super anxious every day, I'm so worried, I can't eat because I really wasn't able to eat, I'm freaking out, I have stomach issues, I can't sit properly, I constantly am struggling with my health, I'm struggling with suicide. All those things shifted for me big time. And they took about 2 to 3 years to shift with the work that I did. And I spent the first year, the first 6 months, I spent 8 hours a day for 6 months doing nothing but the inner work. And to my surprise, right? I mean, I was taking action and looking for clients and doing things here and there, but the core part of my work was about healing myself emotionally. It wasn't even that much about mindset. It was about healing deep scars that had to do with family dynamics. Like I grew really understanding the decisions I'd made around family and how money, not having money, was protecting me. So the first question I asked myself was, how does not having money protect me, right? And then I started to really work around why I was blocking money and protecting myself from money. And that's a constant, I guess that's a constant thing that I work on constantly, because I ask myself, how does not having the goal amount that I want to protect me? Because with every expansion, a new layer of the protection story comes off, right? And I find, oh, there's another thing that I'm protecting myself from. Oh, there's another thing I'm protecting myself from. So I needed to work around that. Then I needed to work around my own inner stories around not feeling good enough, right? It was my doubting my own abilities. Basically, it wasn't even my own abilities that I was doubting. I was doubting my sense of belonging in the world. I don't know how else to explain that, but it was almost like I didn't believe I even belonged in the world, and I was good enough to be in the space and to even do the things that I desired. So I needed to sit with that and work with that. Then there were other stories that I had to question around there not being enough in the world, not being enough for everyone. And then I also had to work around what I call my God wounds, right? Which is how I thought, how I perceived God, the universe, the divine or source, and how I thought, for some reason, not for some reason, but I had proof since childhood of how I thought God hated me. And that was a deep thought. And it wasn't just about hate, it was God will always betray me. You can't trust the divine. So in that case, I realized that I was approaching my life from a sense of, I can't trust anyone. I can't have support. Now, to grow financially, this is huge. You need a tribe. You need people that will support you. Even if it's one person that believes in you and supports you, you need that, because you're going to come to a point in your life one day and you're going to need some kind of support to grow your company, to up level. You're going to need to trust other people enough that they can do a better job than you can. They can design the website better. They can record the videos better than you can, right? They can edit things. They can edit your copy better than you can. They can write better copy, right? So I had to learn to do that, to learn to trust on that level so that I could expand myself to start collaborating with people and having a tribe of people that would help me on the journey to grow. Because also part of expansion and changing our finances is that we can't do it alone. So this brings me to really the core of this class, which is the 7 mistakes that I think people make with money. Because since then I've got e-courses, so I get to work on a daily basis with people around their finances through my e-courses. I also work with people in coaching. I do retreats. So I get to have this amazing, viewpoint on money, emotions, and spirituality, and I absolutely adore it, right? And I also think just coming from where I've come from, where I started off like wanting to end my life because of money, to where I haven't had like any intense suicidal thoughts, or even a thought of, oh, I want to end my life, or any of that. That has never crossed my mind in years, right? So how did I get there? I really want to share so that people can learn from my mistakes, because I'm hoping, my prayer is that whoever's listening to this is listening because it resonates with them, right? And you need to hear some of these things. So the 7 mistakes that we make with money. Number 1 is not being present with money in this moment, right? So when I was struggling with my finances years ago, I'd always run away from money. So looking at my bank account, because it would cause me so much panic and make me think about all the various ways that I could end my life, I would always run away from my finances, and I never ever got to sit with money. I never ever got to just look at my bank account, right? Because I would freak out. So one of the things that I had to learn to do was to change my emotional reaction to money in the present moment. And the way that I did that was to become present with money, was to start by looking at my bank account for 5 minutes every day, right? So I would look at my bank account, and I still do, look at my bank account for 5 minutes every day. And I'm not looking to see if the amount has increased or looking to judge the amount. I am looking to see my emotional reaction around money. So what you want to do is you want to sit and observe how your body reacts when you look at your bank account, and you want to see your emotional reaction to money. Once you gauge that, you don't judge it, you just sit with it and you observe it. So I would do that every day until I just got used to where it no longer freaked me out that I was having panics about money, right? Where I was able to basically get to a point where I was transcending my panic around whatever was going on around in my bank account. And it became, oh, that's my bank account, and oh, this is me now, right? And I think that really made a huge difference. So that's the first thing that you do. And that's the first thing that I would recommend to everyone. Like literally everyone, I do a 5-day challenge, and that's one of my exercises in the 5-day challenge, which is called Fall in Love with Your Bank Account Challenge, because that was the first part of my journey was to learn how to stop being scared of my bank account and how to stop being scared looking at anything related to money, right? And then the second mistake that we make is that we really do a lot of positive affirmations and praying, but we never take action, right? So I love really asking the divine or the universe for support, and I love positive affirmations and mantras and all that, but our lives really change by taking action, right? If we take daily actions, our lives are going to change. So yeah, like do all the positive affirmations, but also take the practical steps. So yes, I was looking at my bank account. That's a sort of practical step. I had to start learning beyond my degree how to do a personal budget that worked for me. I needed to start taking action, like hiring a financial advisor and saying, let me find out what my risk profile is. How do I start investing? How can I get clients? I mean, that was not my every single waking moment, because I was also doing the deep inner work, like I said, but I was doing some sort of action. I was going out, making sure that I was marketing to get clients, and that I was talking to a financial advisor, and that my budget was aligning to the vision that I wrote down. So I was taking some concrete action, right? And this contrast for me with the time before all this, I used to spend 10 hours chanting, right? Praying for a financial breakthrough, and then I'd spend another 15 minutes a day doing positive affirmations as I stared in the mirror, and I did this for 2 years. But it never ever entered my mind to take action around that. But that's also because I had such deep beliefs about me and who I was, and I believed that I was not good enough. Who would ever want to give me the time of day? Who would ever want to talk to me? So I needed to go deeper. So I think that's another thing that we don't talk about in this world, is that we talk a lot of, not in this world, we don't talk about in the mindset space, that it's going beyond just doing positive affirmations and doing visualizations. It's about truly healing. And healing means going into those dark places about ourselves that we don't like. And that's a form of action. Going into the deep, dark spaces to heal those dark parts of ourselves that even we don't want to look at, so that the light can start shining in on there, and like everything can just crack open. And that's when money starts to flow to us, right? We need to be willing to go to those places, right? So, yeah, that's the second mistake. The third mistake I've already shared is that you're trying to do it alone. You're never asking for help. This was a big thing for me. A huge part for me why I never ever tried to ask for help, and I think it's for most people, right, is that we don't know how to ask for help. It's just that simple. We're not taught how to ask for help. Our movies, our media, our books that we consume all tell us about the heroes and the heroines that come in and vanquish everyone, or they come in with a strategy and they get everybody on board and everything goes amazing and they save the day. But that's not how life works, right? So what I had to do is that I had to learn how to ask for help. I had to be able to go to people and say, help. And now that requires an element of vulnerability. So again, it's about just doing a lot more work, and a lot of that is tied to our fear of rejection and our fear of criticism. So, and also just like our feelings of insecurity. So just really working on that and just like working through the rejection that people are, the fear of criticism, that people will think I'm weird and judge me and all that. And then also there's the fear of, oh, now everyone will know my business and they'll know that I'm weak and they'll be able to use this as ammunition against me. Yeah, I was coming from a very, very different space, right? So, when I started telling people how they could help me and basically teaching them how to help me, and honestly saying to them, like I had one day when I was like to my mom, I can't do it all on my own, I need you to do A, B, C, D. And she's like, okay, you should have just asked, right? But I didn't know how to ask for help from family. So when I started learning how to do that and to just be upfront with it, I found so many people were willing to help me. Like I remember having a fight with one of my close friends because I was like, I'm building this business, I'm traveling, and I'm just like alone doing all that. I'm in foreign countries most times. I arrive and for the first 2 to 3 weeks, I don't know a human soul. I'm going to dinner on my own. I'm just meeting people. And in those 3 weeks, I would really appreciate it if people would show up. So when I started telling friends that, like, everyone was like, you should have asked us. So now I have weekly calls with different friends. I have different masterminds to the point where I'm like, okay, now my days are a little ridiculous. Everybody's checking on me. And people are actively introduce me to other people in other countries because I ask for help. So often when I land in a country, I already have so many people that are willing to lunch and have tea with me because my friends are aware of what it's taking to travel, right? Like just the relationship dynamics that every time you leave a country, you're also leaving support systems behind. That is awesome to travel. I'm not complaining. I love that I'm in Malaysia today. I'm in the process of packing for Thailand, and that 4 weeks ago I was in Bali and all that. But traveling has its own unique challenges as well, right? That we don't think about. So I had to ask for help in how to deal with those challenges. And I think doing that really made a difference to my journey as an entrepreneur, as a traveling entrepreneur. Okay, and the fourth mistake is that we don't make personal finances a priority, right? So people often message me and say, I read your newsletters, I see all the work that you're doing, especially with your course students, and I see that the exercises that you sometimes suggest, but things are so hectic for me right now, you know? I have to go chasing money. I'll start working on my finances in a few months. So first things first is not understanding that when you make your personal finances a priority, everything around your personal finances start to improve, right? The more you get your personal finances in order, what happens is that you start to focus more on, then you have the ability to start saying, what do I really want to do with my life? Is this in line with my life? Am I living my purpose? Because you're no longer doing things from a fear of not having money. You're no longer driven by the fear of not having money or the fear of losing money. So making personal finances a priority also helps us in terms of our work environment. You can decide if a job no longer aligns with who you are, you can start making plans to leave it or change it or all that, right? So making personal finances a priority basically gives us freedom of choice. So you can work less time if your personal finances are in order and you've got some savings, investments, emergency savings, right? You have that freedom to work less time. When you have more savings and less debt, you're not as stressed. So you can make self-care a priority. You can afford to pay for things like yoga, organic fruit and vegetables, you know, all those things. So personal finances are really key. And also, when we make personal finances a priority, it also has a huge impact on our relationships, right? And I say this understanding that most people don't get this, but most people are not able to be fully present in relationships because we don't have the finances. We need to go chasing money, right? So imagine if you were able to feel safe with the money that you had and you felt like, okay, I'm on track. You can give yourself the space to spend more time with the people you love, right? So it makes a huge difference. It can shift things. You can fly siblings to where you are. You can fly your kids, your parents to your location, or you can go home to be with them as often as you want. Because the irony that I find is, even though I travel so much, right, and I'm never home all the time, my parents can say they spend a lot of time with me, right? Because when I go to South Africa, I go for like 3 to 4 months at a stretch. So by the time I leave, my family is like, oh gosh, we've seen you, like, we're good with you going, right? And I think that's what making personal finances a priority does, is that I never have to think twice and go, oh my gosh, like, I have to worry about taking leave from the company and what that will do. And if something happens at home, then I can't put my family first because I may be fired from my job, or all these things. It doesn't have to be the decision. It basically eliminates making the choice between, do I keep my finances in order, or do I focus on the people I love? And I think making that a priority, and just, even if you don't have tons of savings, just being able to go, I know that I've got enough that will keep me for the next 3 to 4 months, and I know that money will show up, and you're not panicking. Then you can make the decision to say, I'd rather be home with my family in this time if a family emergency arises, which, trust me, life happens and things like that happen, and I've had to make those choices too, where I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to go home now, and just seeing that that is not the big issue, that the issue is just going home and spending time with my family. It's not about, oh my gosh, I can't do this, I can't do that, because this will have such an intense financial impact, lose the job, blah, 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 all that. Doesn't mean you have to be an entrepreneur, but I'm saying that at least when you have some money saved and you've got emergency savings, the decisions that you make from that space are completely different from the decisions that you make when you have absolutely nothing in terms of finances, and your finances are all over the place, right? You can be truly present for the people in your life as well. And the fifth mistake is believing that making more money leads to financial freedom. Oh, wow, so this is a big one, right? I mean, definitely having a higher income means that you can save more, invest more, and it just completely shifts the game. But when we have deep money issues, you can make more money and still blow more money. As much money as you make, you'll find as many ways to get rid of money as possible, right? So I remember when I was $60,000 in debt. Yeah, that's how much debt I had, right? And I paid it off in 3 years as I was doing the work. So I had $60,000 in debt. But here's the crazy thing. At one point, I was working 40 hours a month and making between $5,000 and $8,000 a month, right? So yeah, that's true. Like, I was making $5,000 to $8,000 US a month, and I was only working 40 hours a month. So it wasn't that bad. That was what, like 10 hours a week? Not bad, especially if you're making $8,000 in that week. In that month, I was like, I'm super happy. But here's the crazy thing. In that time when I was making that much money, guess what? I never once, not even once, paid off a credit card, paid off a bill, paid off a debt. I know, right? Like, I still can't understand how that's possible. In fact, I got deeper and deeper into debt because I was, as much money as I was making, I needed to find a way to spend it and to keep increasing credit. So that's why sometimes there's tons of research to say that, like, most lottery winners end up in more debt and worse off financially than before they won the lottery. A lot of that is showing to us that it's actually not about the money, right? It's about something deeper. So ultimately, what you want to do is you want to increase your earnings, have done your healing work around money, so that increased earnings also leads to increased savings, increased investments, really different decisions around money. So here's the kicker, right? So I just told you guys that there was a time when I was making like $8,000 a month for 40 hours of work. And then, but when I did pay off my debt, so I had $60,000 in debt, everything in US dollars. And remember, I was making that money in US dollars. I moved back to South Africa with all my $60,000 in debt and all my issues, moved back to South Africa, took on a job that paid me about $2,500 US a month, and held that job for 18 months. And do you know, in 18 months, I paid off $60,000 in debt. It's crazy, right? I mean, like, I don't even think in 18 months I made $60,000 earning like part-time $2,500, but it's what I did with the rest of my time, right? With the other 20 hours. So I was working 20-hour weeks, and I was like, the other 20 hours that I was doing, what I was doing with the other 20 hours was I was building wealthy money. I was putting the foundations in place, making very different financial decisions. But even not earning tons, I was able to pay off $60,000 in debt. Took 3 years, but the 18 months at the job helped. So I'd already started 18 months prior to that, and then the rest of the 18 months was the remaining time when I paid off all the debt. What was crazy was, I think in the 18 months prior to that, I'd only paid off about $10,000 in debt. So when I was really working in those 18 months, I paid off $60,000 in debt. I paid off that remaining $50,000. Here's another crazy part. I then also bought property. So yeah, I have property in Cape Town. And with all that, I was able to buy property. So basically what I'm trying to get through to this point is, it's not about how much you make. That is important, super important. Don't get me wrong. It's not just about how much you make. It's also about what you do with what you make, right? But I mean, I already had like a whole learning curve, right? Where I'd had about 2 years of making $8,000 a month and doing nothing and sinking deeper into debt. So by the time I got even a little bit of money, no matter how small, I had learned my lesson and I had done the inner work, right? So that's where the shift started to happen. And then number 6, right? The 6th mistake that we make with money is the polar opposite of the 5th mistake. So in the 5th, we believe that making more money will lead us to having financial freedom. The 6th mistake is really believing that cutting expenses leads to financial freedom. I know, right? But these things are not contradictory lessons. So this whole thing of what is called the latte factor, how we think by saving $3 a month, $3 a day on lattes is going to make us, is going to get us financially free and help us build the lives that we want. No, that's also, in its own way, it's got its own challenges. So it's not about cutting down on basic needs. So when I started off paying debt, one of the first things was I fell into this trap that I have to cut expenses. And then I started cutting down on basic needs. I mean, I would even cut down on food in an effort to pay off debt, right? So that was crazy because it ended up being a disaster, because I would be looking at this budget and forcing myself to stick to this budget, and I didn't want to spend money even on food, something that was necessary for my well-being and that was going to help me as a person, right, and help keep me healthy. And I started cutting down on that. I wanted the cheapest of everything, etc. You know what? Within like a few months, I started to notice something. I resented money. And I was constantly frustrated about money, right? And every time, halfway through the month, I'd have a full-on rebellion session. I'd ignore my budget and spend all my money on everything that I wanted. So why would I do that, though? I mean, you can imagine you're wondering why. And this is, by the way, why these stringent budgets never work. So I want us to think of stringent budgets as stringent diets, right? And there's a huge link between money and food as well, right? It's like how some people stick to a budget, some people stick to a diet in the same manner. What you want is to find something that works for you. You don't want your life to fit into a budget. You want a budget that fits into your life. So if you have more needs and wants in your life, you want to get to a point of asking, how do I expand my income and how do I expand my life's calling to a point where I actually start to make more money to really fulfill my wants and needs? That's really the question that we want to be having. The question isn't how do I shrink my expenses and shrink my wants and desires, because you really don't want to shrink your wants and desires, right? Life is about allowing ourselves to expand. And now there's a big difference between expansion and greediness, right? And we also want to expand in a way that aligns with our value system, aligns with the core of our souls. You don't want to just expand just because it's all there and I just want it for myself. It's like, does this align with what my soul wants and what I think my soul would want to grow into? Those are the questions that you really want to ask of yourself as you think of expansion. And then you don't want to deny yourself from expanding, right? So the real question then is, when you feel like your life is fitting into this budget and you feel frustrated and resentful about money, that's the time to just like pause for a minute and then just try to figure out, how can I expand? How can I grow my income so that I am comfortable and my expenses, my wants, and my desires are met, and I can still invest and I can still save? That's the real question that we want to ask, because self-denial is actually never the answer, right? And it doesn't address some of the deeper emotional issues that we have with money, right? So it's just about learning how to align our expenditure to our financial vision and owning our wants and our desires. Because the minute we start owning our wants and our desires and we start asking the universe for help, start asking these questions about expansion, guess what? Like, we get the help. The universe comes with the healing tools, with everything that we need in order to heal. And then the seventh mistake that we make about money is thinking that it's just about the money. So the first thing that I say to all my students is, it's never about the money. It's about almost everything else except the actual hard cold cash or the numbers on your screen. It's never about the money, right? So it's really that we have a lot of emotional issues and spiritual issues that impact the way that we view money and that impact the way that we spend money, that impact the amount of debt that we create, our lack of savings or investments. So all these things start to affect our relationship with money. We have family karma, we have ancestral stories around money, we have childhood stories, and we have belief systems, even societal belief systems that affect how we spend money. And also we have these deep-seated issues, deep-seated beliefs that we have formed around money in our upbringing. So maybe we saw an uncle lose a car because they couldn't pay on time, and we saw how that absolutely devastated not just our uncle, but the whole family. Then we reached the conclusion that, oh my God, money is bad. Like, I don't want money if this is what it can do to people, right? So that really affects us on a deeper, deeper level. So it's something that we need to be absolutely aware of when it comes to money. Whew. Okay, so those are the 7 mistakes that we make with money. And I think I also shared tons of my life stories, so you guys know way more about me than when I started, right? And thanks Junior for making me do a live class, right? So really appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts, and I am giving you guys a gift. It's called the Creating Intentional Wealth Workbook. So it's Creating Intentional Wealth Workbook, and you find it at wealthy-money.com/ebook. Again, wealthy-money.com/ebook. And it's a really cool workbook that you can work through, and it's basically about understanding your personal financial vision, getting to how much that will cost you, and like starting to really understand how much you truly need to make in order to start creating the life that you want, right? And this is so not impossible. And what will it take for you to have the life that you want? So yeah, feel free to message me. I also offer the Creating Money Magic course, and I do one-on-one coaching. So yeah, feel free to message me, and I'll be happy to message you right back. And once more, thank you for joining the Black Experience. This has been a wonderful, wonderful experience for me, and I truly enjoyed it. And thank you, Junior, for this phenomenal opportunity. Really appreciate it. Namaste. Bye.